This is a 2018 Tesla Model 3. Not just any Model 3 though, this is used as a rental car and it already has 60,000 miles on it. So on this episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive, we're gonna take a deep dive and look around this car, take it for a spin and see just how well it's holding up. Or not how well it's holding up, one or the other. Welcome everyone to another episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive, and you may recognize this car next to me. It's been on the channel before. Almost a year ago exactly, I reviewed this Model 3. It is a long-range rear-wheel drive Tesla Model 3, and I really enjoyed it. And I hit up my friend Aaron, who owns this car, and I wanted to do a follow-up to see how it's been going because he rents this thing out. It's had, I think he said 85 trips on Turo. And it has 60,000 miles. So I just want to see, like, from a year ago today to now, like how well it's been holding up. Now, if you are in the Cincinnati, Indianapolis, or Louisville area, he rents Teslas out on Turo, as I mentioned.
And he's actually running a promotion through the end of May. If you DM him on Instagram and mention this video, you can rent a Tesla Model Y Performance for only $99. There's a link in the description below.
But anyway, here's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna go like interior, exterior, we're gonna look at how it's wearing and everything after 60,000 miles. Then of course we're gonna take it for a spin and see how it's driving, see how it's holding up, any squeaks and rattles, battery degradation, anything like that. We're gonna dive in. So let's first get started with the exterior. I'm gonna give you guys a tour and show you how well this car is holding up. So let's take an exterior tour of the 60,000 mile rental Tesla Model 3. And from what I've seen, just kind of walking around the car, there isn't too much to report that's honestly out of the ordinary. There's a couple rock chips and stuff like that, but honestly, it's consistent with really any car you would see with 60,000 miles on it and has some highway usage. There is a mark over here on the bottom, but I think that's, my buddy Aaron said that was from a trailer incident, so self-inflicted, much like there is a mark on the rear bumper where somebody backed it into a pole. But, you know, other than just human error, this thing hasn't been in any accidents, which I find quite interesting because, you know, when I initially reviewed the car, getting used to the autopilot functions and things like that are kind of hard. You know, so for 85 different people who have taken trips in this car to hop in, having probably never used a Tesla and operated around, probably use autopilot to some extent, and not crash it, I think kind of speaks to autopilot itself and, you know, just the safety that the car has. It will automatically brake and stuff in emergency scenarios. And while I still do think that they're pretty far away from like full self-driving, it is pretty impressive like what they have so far. But as we look around, you just don't see really anything that would show abnormal wear. The clear coat is in really great shape. And the paint overall is really, really nice, which is something that I was kind of surprised about because there was a lot of talk about people saying how the build quality of these was somewhat questionable. And, you know, when it comes to an early adoption of a brand new model, that's something that you should be probably concerned about, which is fair. He did say that the taillights have been replaced, so those aren't original, but that was covered under warranty. I guess it's common for those to get condensation in them, which, I mean, that happens in my car, my FRS as well, so not just a Tesla problem. And he also did say that the front control arm was the only cost that he incurred outside of warranty with this car. He said it was creaking, so he replaced that, and he said it was about 400 bucks. So really not too bad for 60,000 miles of motoring. And one thing I can hopefully show you on the video, it's really hard with the lighting. I don't know if I could zoom in there, but the brakes, the brake pads look basically new. And after 60,000 miles, that's quite a shocker. But as I started to think about it, these cars have braking regeneration, so you can often just drive it kind of with one pedal, and you don't even have to actually physically touch the brakes to slow the car down, because when you let off the gas, it's trying to regenerate some of that lost energy back into the battery. So that's a nice little feature that you're really not going to have to do brakes too many times on these cars. Let's head on the inside and see how the interior is wearing. From an interior perspective, it's really much the same. The leather, the seats, the carpet, all look to be in really good shape. This is obviously the driver's seat, so it would be seeing the most wear out of any of the seats. A little bit of wrinkles here from people sliding in and out, but I mean, overall it's in really good condition and still quite supple, honestly. And let's look at kind of the tactile points where people are always touching. The steering wheel is in really good shape. I don't really see any significant sign of wear on there after 60,000 miles. Door handle as well, you know, this leather or leatherette, whatever you want to call it. Switch gear looks really good. Piano black, I'm not a huge fan of. You could kind of see some micro swirls, but that happens basically immediately on any car. All these compartments and trays seem to work, all the levers and whatnot. I mean, I hate to just say not much to report here, but in a way that's obviously kind of good because it shows that these cars are holding up really quite well. The screen is still just as nice. I don't see any dead pixels or anything like that. And of course, the nice part is they continue to operate, or they continue to update the software for you. So, you know, you're still constantly getting software updates with this car. So really, exterior, interior, both really quite nice. The only thing I will say is that the door is a little bit clunky when you close it and kind of requires you to slam it to get it closed. That's something that I noticed on the Model Y that I think they changed. I think they changed the door weighting on the Model Y. The Model 3 is slightly clunkier, but overall, quite a nice outcome so far. Let's take this thing for a spin and see, most importantly, how it is driving after 60,000 miles. All right, let's take this thing for a spin and most importantly, see how it drives. It still has that instant torque and it still feels just as fast as when I drove it last time, that's for sure. Holy cow, okay, all right, I forgot how quick these were. This is just the single motor rear wheel drive version. It is the long range, so it has the increased range. I think it's 325 miles or something like that. But I mean, when it comes to the acceleration and stuff, feels just as brisk as when I got in it. And of course it should. It's an electric motor. There's really not much to wear on it, like a gasoline engine. And it really got me thinking, you know, when I initially got in the car, because I was thinking about rental cars and how a lot of people kind of are abusive to rental cars a little bit. And, you know, I would consider abuse being like getting in there and like hammering on the gas when the engine's cold before, you know, all the tolerances are up, you know, up to snuff and everything like that, and bouncing it off the rev limiter and stuff like that. And in an electric car, you can't do that, right? There's really this lack of a concept of being able to abuse an electric car to a certain extent. Of course, you could be on the brakes and doing all kinds of other things like that. But when it comes to the engine, you know, a rental car is an electric car for a rental car is sort of the perfect application for that, isn't it? So that's something that I'm kind of discovering as I drive the car. And when we get to things like squeaks and rattles and stuff like that, I have only noticed one rattle, and there's like back there, I don't know if you guys could hear it on camera, certain rough roads, certain frequencies, somewhere in the front left here, there is a rattle, and it just kind of like resonates a little bit, and kind of, it's not so much a squeak as it is a rattle. I don't really have any other things like that, any other squeaks or rattles, certainly none from the suspension. The suspension feels great. It feels just like the last time I drove it. I really like the suspension setup in this car. You know, they have a lot of different options. Like you can get the performance model, which has a slightly stiffer suspension and bigger wheels and stuff. But this has the, I believe they're 19s or maybe 18s, but slightly smaller wheels than some of the cars. And it feels really good. Still isn't worn out at all. Once again, don't hear any creaks and rattles. Given my friend did have to replace the front control arm, but I mean, besides that, it's just been like, look at this. I'm just like whipping through here. It's crazy. So yeah, it's held up super, super well. How about battery degradation? it's really hard, honestly, to calculate that because Tesla doesn't give you any tools out of the box to calculate how healthy the battery is or not. You can only go off of obviously the range that you get when you, if you, from 100% to 0% and you calculate, obviously how many miles you've gone based on a trip or anything like that is really the only way. This one, of course, like the estimated range is just a function of how you've been driving the car and how much percentage of battery is left. So what I saw earlier was 288 miles of range left, and that was at a 90% charge. So that pretty much goes in line with what you would expect even new out of the box out of this one. Once again, there's going to be a little bit of calculation going on there based on your driving style and stuff, but I would imagine that most people who are renting Teslas, like I am right now, are constantly getting on it and enjoying that feeling of surging power and stuff like that. So really, if there is any battery degradation, it seems like it's quite small. I mean, I've been driving this car for a few hours now, and the amount of miles I'm putting on is completely coinciding with how much range I have indicated left. So it doesn't seem like there's been any significant amount of battery degradation, which is something that I would be concerned about, especially if I was going to buy one of these things used. So I think that bodes well for people who are interested in one of these on the used market or something like that, because obviously there's not too much to go wrong with these. It's just the motor and the battery, but those are obviously very expensive items. Now, one of the other neat little things that I'm noticing as I'm driving this car, of course, a year later, is what I've seen a lot of people talk about with Teslas. It's so cool that you are constantly getting software updates with these vehicles. This came out 2 years ago, but it still has the latest and greatest in the form of all the software. Like I just drove the Model Y. This is exactly like that. So both cars have the enhanced self-driving, which I can engage here, and with just the double tap of this stalk, and it's going to monitor the speed. It's steering for me right now. It will brake if something runs out in front of me and stuff like that. And what I think is really cool is that he bought the I forget what it's called when he purchased the car, but the full self-driving or enhanced self-driving or whatever you want to call it. He purchased that at the time. They've since come out with more software, which required more processing power, and they upgraded his hardware for free. That was included. So we'll see what it does right here. Yep. See, it's still far away from full self-driving. It was totally going to hit that pole or come ridiculously close. So, use self-driving at your own discretion. Know that it's not perfect. Know the scenarios when it can get tripped up, like stuff like that. I think it's pretty good on the highway. I like to use it when there's not a lot of cars around and stuff. I would never use it in traffic, never use it in construction. Once again, it's still got a little bit of a long way to go. It can do things like this, no problem. But there are still some improvements. But that's not really something that I can take away from the car itself. That just is what it is, and that is all the Teslas right now. But I once again do think it's pretty cool that you can get the added new features, free software updates for this car, and it keeps it feeling very modern. And I even get like things like stop signs show up on the screen now, and red lights. That was something that wasn't there a year ago. So it just kind of goes to show that they're always improving the vehicle. But guys, I mean, there's really not a lot for me to report on this car, which I think is a good thing. That means that they're holding up pretty well, but it does make for a semi-boring video because I don't have a lot to say like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. A little bit of rattle. Once again, the control arm was replaced. But guys, I'm really impressed. I wouldn't be afraid to pick up a used Tesla if you were in the market. I mean, everything I've seen is that these things hold up pretty well, and there's certainly a lot less moving parts going on than in a traditional gasoline engine car. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like if you have any questions or comments, certainly leave them below. You can also hit me up on Instagram at Eat Sleep Drive TV. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Was, I guess, in a weird way, hoping to find something that was interesting or wrong with the car, as kind of messed up as that sounds, but it's held up well. So for all you people who have already adopted Teslas, keep on enjoying your ride, I guess. So once again, I appreciate you guys watching. As always, I will look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. See ya.